show any ability at all. They don't let you go until you've learned enough not to kill yourself, or just die from it. I am not a simple village girl anymore. I have seen something of the world. I can keep out of Aes Sedai hands if I want to. She was trying to convince herself as much as Elaine. And what if I don't know enough, yet? Enough about the world, enough about the power. What if just channeling can still kill me? She refused to think of that. So much I have to learn yet. I won't let them stop me. My mother might protect us, Elaine said, if what that white cloak said is true. I never thought I would hope something like that was the truth. But if it isn't, Mother is just as likely to send us both back in chains. Will you teach me how to live in a village? Egwene blinked at the wall. You will come with me? If it comes to that, I mean. There was another long silence, then a faint whisper. I do not want to be stilled, Egwene. I will not be. I will not be! The door swung open, crashing against the wall, and Egwene sat up with a start. She heard the bang of a door from the other side of the wall. Faolain stepped into Egwene's room, smiling as her eyes went to the tiny hole. Similar holes joined most of the novice rooms. Any woman who had been a novice knew of them. Whispering with your friend, eh? The curly-haired accepted said with surprising warmth. Well, it grows lonely, waiting by yourself. Did you have a nice chat? Egwene opened her mouth, then closed it again hastily. She could answer. Aes Sedai, Sheriam had said. No one else. She regarded the accepted with a level expression and waited. The false sympathy slid off Faolain's face like water running off a roof. On your feet. The Amelin's not to be kept waiting by the likes of you. You are lucky. I did not come in time to hear you. Move! Novices were supposed to obey the accepted almost as quickly as they obeyed Aes Sedai. But Egwene got to her feet slowly and took as much time as she dared in smoothing her dress. She gave Faolain a small curtsy and a tiny smile. The scowl that rolled across the accepted's face made Egwene's smile grow before she remembered to rein it in. There was no point in pushing Faolain too far. Holding herself straight, pretending her knees were not shaking, she preceded the accepted out of the room. Elaine was already waiting outside with the apple-cheeked accepted, looking fiercely determined to be brave. Somehow, she managed to give the impression that the accepted was a handmaid carrying her gloves. Egwene hoped that she herself was doing half so well. The railed galleries of the novices' quarters rose tier on tier above in a hollow column and fell as many below to the novices' court. There were no other women in sight. Even if every novice in the tower had been there, though, less than a quarter of the rooms would have been filled. The four of them walked round the empty galleries and down the spiraling ramps in silence. None could bear to have the sounds of voices emphasize the emptiness. Egwene had never before been into the part of the tower where the Amelin had her rooms. The corridors there were wide enough for a wagon to pass down easily, and taller than they were wide. Colorful tapestries hung on the walls, tapestries in a dozen styles, of floral designs and forest scenes, of heroic deeds and intricate patterns, some so old they looked as if they might break if handled. Their shoes made loud clicks on diamond-shaped floor tiles that repeated the colors of the 7 Ajahs. There were few other women in evidence. An Aes Sedai now and then, sweeping majestically along with no time to notice. Accepted or novices, 5 or 6 accepted hurrying south, importantly about their tasks or studies, a sprinkling of serving women with trays or mops or armfuls of sheets or towels, a few novices moving on errands even more quickly than the servants. Nynaeve and her slim-necked escort Theodrin joined them. Neither spoke. Nynaeve wore an accepted's dress, now white with the 7-colored bands at the hem, but her belt and pouch were her own. She gave Egwene and Elaine each a reassuring smile and a hug. Egwene was so relieved to see another friendly face that she returned the hug with barely a thought that Nynaeve was behaving as if she were comforting children. But as they walked on, Nynaeve gave her thick braid a sharp tug from time to time too. Very few men came into that part of the tower, and Egwene saw only 2, warders walking side by side in conversation, one with his sword on his hip, the other with his on his back. One was short and slender, even slight. The other almost as wide as he was tall, yet both moved with a dangerous grace. The color-shifting water cloaks made them queasy, making to watch for long, parts of them sometimes seeming to fade into the walls beyond. She saw Nynaeve looking at them and shook her head. She has to do something about Lan. If any of us can do anything about anyone after today. The antechamber of the Amelin Seat's study was grand enough for any palace, though the chairs scattered about for those who might wait were plain. But Egwene had eyes only for Aes Sedai. The keeper wore her narrow stole of office, blue to show she had been raised from the Black Ajah, and her face could have been carved from smooth, brownish stone. There was no one else there. Did they give any trouble? The keeper's clipped way of talking gave no hint now of either anger or sympathy. No, Aes Sedai, Theodrin and the apple-cheeked accepted said together. This one had to be pulled by the scruff of her neck, Aes Sedai, Faulan said, indicating Egwene. The accepted sounded indignant. She balks as if she has forgotten what the discipline of the White Tower is. To lead, Liane said, is neither to push nor to pull. Go to Aes Sedai, Faulan, and ask her to allow you to contemplate on this while raking the paths in the spring garden. She dismissed Faulan and the other two, accepted, and they dropped deep curtsies. From the depth of hers, Faulan shot a furious look at Egwene. The keeper paid no attention to the accepted's leaving. Instead, she studied the remaining women, tapping a forefinger against her lips, till Egwene had the feeling they had all been measured to the inch and weighed to the ounce. Nynaeve's eyes took on a dangerous sparkle, and she had a tight grip on her braid. Finally, Lean raised a hand toward the doors to the Amelin's study. The great serpent bit its own tail, a pace across, on the dark wood of each. "Enter," she said. Nynaeve stepped forward promptly and opened one of the doors. That was enough to get Egwene moving. Elaine held her hand tightly, and she gripped Elaine's just as hard. Lean followed them in and took a place to one side, halfway between the three of them and the table in the center of the room. The Amelin's seat sat behind the table, examining papers. She did not look up. Once Nynaeve opened her mouth, but closed it again, at a sharp look from the keeper. The three of them stood in a line in front of the Amelin's table and waited. Egwene tried not to fidget. Long minutes went by. It seemed like hours before the Amelin raised her head. But when those blue eyes fixed them each in turn, Egwene decided she could have waited longer. The Amelin's gaze was like two icicles boring into her heart. The room was cool, but a trickle of sweat began to run down her back. "So," the Amelin said finally, "our runaways return." "We did not run away, Mother." Nynaeve was obviously straining for calm, but her voice shook with emotion. Anger, Egwene knew. That strong will was all too often accompanied by anger. Liandrin told us we were to go with her, and... The loud crack of the Amelin's hand slapping the table cut her off. "Do not invoke Liandrin's name here, child," the Amelin snapped. Lean watched them with a stern serenity. "Mother, Liandrin is Black Ajah," Elaine burst out. "That is known, child." "Child!" Suspected, at least, and as good as known. Liandrin left the tower some months ago, and 12 other women went with her. None has been seen since. Before they left, they tried to break into the storeroom where the Angreal and Sa-Angreal are kept, and did manage to enter that where the smaller Terangreal are stored. They stole a number of those, including several we do not know the use of. Nynaeve stared at the Amelin in horror, and Elaine suddenly rubbed her arms as if she were cold. Egwene knew she was shivering too. Many times she had imagined returning to confront Liandrin and accuse her, to see her condemned to some punishment, except that she had never managed to imagine any punishment strong enough to suit that doll-faced Aes Sedai's crimes. She had even pictured returning to find Liandrin already fled. In terror of her return, it was usually. But she had never imagined anything like this. If Liandrin and the others, she had not really wanted to believe there were others, had stolen those remnants of the Age of Legends, there was no telling what they could do with them. Thank the light. They did not get any Sa-Angreal, she thought. The other was bad enough. Sa-Angreal were like Angreal, allowing an Aes Sedai to channel more of the power than she safely could unaided, but far more powerful than Angreal and rare. Ter-Angreal was something different, existing in greater numbers than either Angreal or Sa-Angreal, though still not common. They used the one power rather than helping to channel it. and no one truly understood them. Many would work only for someone who could channel, needing the actual channeling of the power, while others did what they did for anyone. Where all the Angreal and Sa-Angreal Egwene had ever heard of were small, ter'angreal could seemingly be any size. Each had apparently been made for a specific purpose by those Aes Sedai of 3,000 years ago, to do a certain thing, and Aes Sedai synths had died trying to learn what died, or had the ability to channel burned out of them. They were sisters of the Brown Ajah who had made ter'angreal their life study. Some were in use, if likely not, for the purposes they had been made. The stout white rod that the Accepted held while taking the 3 oaths on being raised to Aes Sedai was a ter'angreal, binding them to the oaths as surely as if they had been bred in the bone. Another ter'angreal was the site of the final test before a novice was raised to the Accepted. There were others, including many no one could make work at all, and many others that seemed to have no practical use. Why did they take things no one knows how to use? Egwene wondered. Kine! Or maybe the Black Ajah does know. That possibility made her stomach churn. That might be as bad as Sa-Angreal in Darkfriend hands. Theft, the Amyrlin went on in tones as cold as her eyes, was the least of what they did. 3 sisters died that night, as well as 2 warders, 7 guards, and 9 of the servants. Murder, done to hide their thieving and their flight. It may not be proof that they were Black Ajah. The words grated from her mouth, but I cannot believe otherwise. When there are fish heads and blood in the water, you don't need to see the silverpike to know they are there. Then why are we being treated as criminals? Nynaeve demanded. We were tricked by a woman of the Black Ajah. That should be enough to clear us of any wrongdoing. The Amyrlin barked a mirthless laugh. You think so, do you, child? It may be your salvation that no one in the tower but Vereen, Lean and I even suspects you had anything to do with Liandrin. If that were known, much less the little demonstration you put on for the Whitestrokes, no need to look so surprised. Vereen told me everything. If it were known you had gone off with Liandrin, the Hall might very well vote for stilling the 3 of you before you could take a breath. That is not fair, Nynaeve said. Lean stirred, but Nynaeve went on. It is not right. The Amyrlin stood up. That was all, but it cut Nynaeve short. Egwene thought she was wise to keep quiet. She had always believed Nynaeve was as strong-willed as anyone could be, until she met the woman wearing the striped stole. Please keep your temper, Nynaeve. We might as well be children babes facing our mother, and this mother can do far worse than beat us. It seemed to her a way out was being offered in what the Amyrlin had said, but she was not sure what way. Mother, forgive me for speaking, but what do you intend to do to us? Do to you, child. I intend to punish you and Elaine for leaving the tower without permission, and Nynaeve for leaving the city without permission. First, you will each be called to Sheriam Sedai's study, where I've told her to switch you till you wish you had a cushion to sit on for the next week. I have already had this announced to the novices and the Accepted. Egwene blinked in surprise. Elaine gave an audible grunt, stiffened her back, and muttered something under her breath. Nynaeve was the only one who seemed to take it without shock. Punishment, whether extra labors or something else, was always between the mistress of novices and whoever was called to her. Those were usually novices, but included the Accepted who stepped far enough beyond the bounds. Sheriam always keeps it between you and her, Egwene thought bleakly. She can't have told everyone. Way! But better than being imprisoned. Better than being stilled. The announcement is part of the punishment, of course, the Amyrlin went on, as if she had read Egwene's mind. I have also had it announced that you are all 3 assigned to the kitchens to work with the scullions until further notice. And I have let it be whispered about that further notice might just mean the rest of your natural lives. Do I hear objections to any of this? No, Mother, Egwene said quickly. Nynaeve would hate scrubbing pots even more than the other. It could be worse, Nynaeve. Light. It could be so much worse. Nynaeve's nostrils had flared, but she gave her head a tight shake. And you, Elaine, the Amyrlin said. The daughter heir of Andor is used to gentler treatment. I want to be Aes Sedai, Mother, Elaine said in a firm voice. The Amelin fingered a paper in front of her on the table and seemed to study it for a moment. When she raised her head, her smile was not at all pleasant. If any of you had been silly enough to answer otherwise, I had something to add to your tally that would have had you cursing your mother for ever letting your father steal that first kiss, letting yourselves be winkled out of the tower like thoughtless children. Even an infant would never have fallen into that trap. I will teach you to think before you act, or else I'll use you to chink cracks in the water gates. Egwene found herself offering silent thanks. A prickle ran over her skin as the Amelin continued. Now, as to what else I intend to do with you, it seems you have all increased your ability to channel remarkably since you left the tower. You have learned much, including some things, she added sharply, that I intend to see you unlearn. Nynaeve surprised Egwene by saying, I know we have done things we should not have, Mother. I assure you we will do our best to live as if we had taken the 3 oaths. The Amelin grunted. See that you do, she said dryly. If I could, I'd put the oath rod in your hands tonight. But as that is reserved for being raised to Aes Sedai, I must trust to your good sense, if you have any, to keep you whole. As it is, you, Egwene, and you, Elaine, are to be raised to the accepted. Elaine gasped, and Egwene stammered a shocked, Thank you, Mother. Lean shifted where she stood. Egwene did not think the keeper looked best pleased. Not surprised, she had obviously known it was coming, but not pleased either. Do not thank me. Your abilities have gone too far for you to remain novices. Some will think you should not have the ring, not after what you've done, but the sight of you up to your elbows in greasy pots should mute the criticism. Unless you start thinking it's some sort of reward, remember that the first few weeks as one of the accepted are used to pick the rotting fish out of the basket of good ones. Your worst day as a novice will seem a fond dream compared to the least of your studies over the next weeks. I suspect that some of the sisters who teach you will make your trials even worse than they strictly must be. But I don't believe you will complain. Will you? I can learn, Egwene thought. Choose my own studies. I can learn about the dreams, learn now to... The Amelin's smile cut off her train of thought. That smile said nothing. The sisters could do to them would be worse than it needed to be if it left them alive. Nynaeve's face was a mixture of deep sympathy and horrified remembrance of her own first weeks as one of the accepted. The combination was enough to make Egwene swallow hard. No, Mother, she said faintly. Elaine's reply was a hoarse whisper. Then that's done. Then that's done. Your mother was not at all pleased by your disappearance, Elaine. She knows? Elaine squeaked. Lean sniffed, and the Amelin arched an eyebrow, saying, I could hardly keep it from her. You missed her by less than a month, which may be as well for you. You might not have survived that mating. She was mad enough to chew through an oar, at you, at me, at the White Tower. I can imagine, Mother, Elaine said faintly. I don't think you can, child. You may have ended a tradition that began before there was an Andor, a custom stronger than most laws. Morgus refused to take Elida back with her. For the first time ever, the Queen of Andor does not have an Aes Sedai advisor. She demanded your immediate return to Caemlyn as soon as you were found. I convinced her it would be safer for you to train here a little longer. She was ready to remove your 2 brothers from their training with the warders, too. They talked their way out of that themselves. I still do not know how. Elaine seemed to be looking inward, perhaps seeing Morgaze in all her anger. He shitted. She shivered. Gawain is my brother, she said absently. Galad is not. Do not be childish, the Amelin told her. Sharing the same father makes Galad your brother too, whether or not you like him. I will not allow childishness out of you, girl. A measure of stupidity can be tolerated in a novice. It is not allowed in one of the accepted. Yes, Mother, Elaine said glumly. The Queen left a letter for you with Sheriam. Aside from giving you the rough side of her tongue, I believe she states her intention of bringing you home as soon as it is safe for you. She is sure that in a few more months at most you will be able to channel without risking killing yourself. But I want to learn, Mother. The iron had returned to Elaine's voice. I want to be Aes Sedai. The Amelin smile was even grimmer than her last. As well that you do, child, because I have no intention of letting Morghese have you. You have the potential to be stronger than any Aes Sedai in 1,000 years, and I will not let you go until you achieve the shawl as well as the ring. Not if I have to grind you into sausage to do it. I will not let you go. Do I make myself clear? Yes, mother. Elaine sounded uneasy, and Egwene did not blame her. Caught between Morghese and the White Tower like a towel between two dogs. Caught between the Queen of Andor and the Amelin seat. If Egwene had ever envied Elaine her wealth and the throne she would one day occupy, at that moment she surely did not. The Amelin said briskly, Lean, take Elaine down to Sheriam's study. I have a few words yet to say to these other two. Words I do not think they will enjoy hearing. Egwene exchanged startled looks with Nynaeve. For a moment, worry dissolved the tension between them. What does she have to say to us and not to Elaine? She wondered. I do not care, so long as she does not try to stop me learning. But why not Elaine, too? Elaine grimaced at the mention of the mistress of novices' study, but she drew herself up as Lean came to her side. As you command, mother, she said formally, lowering herself in a perfect curtsy, skirts sweeping wide. So shall I obey. She followed Lean out with her head held high. Chapter 14. The Bite of the Thorns. The Amelin's seat did not speak at once. She walked to the tall, arched windows and looked out across the balcony at the garden below, hands clasped tightly behind her. Minutes went by before she spoke, still with her back to the two of them. I have kept the worst of it from getting out, but how long will that last? The servants do not know of the stolen ter'angreal, and they do not connect the deaths with Liandrin and the others leaving. It was not easy to manage that, gossip being what it is. They believe the deaths were the work of dark friends, and so they were. Rumors are reaching the city too, that dark friends got into the tower, that they did murder. There was no way to stop that. It does our reputation no good, but at least it is better than the truth. At least none outside the tower, and few inside, know. Aes Sedai were killed, dark friends in the White Tower. I've spent my life denying that. I will not let them be here. I will hook them, and gut them, and hang them out in the sun to dry. Nynaeve gave Egwene an uncertain look, half as uncertain as Egwene felt. Then took a deep breath. Mother, are we to be punished more? Beyond what you've already sentenced us to? The Amelin looked over her shoulder at them. Her eyes were lost in shadow. Punished more? You might well say that. Some will say I've given you a gift, raising you. Now feel the real bite of that rose's thorns. She strode briskly back to her chair and sat down, then seemed to lose her urgency again. Or to gain uncertainty. To see the Amelin look uncertain made Egwene's stomach clench. The Amelin's seat was always sure, always serenely centered on her path. The Amelin was strength personified. For all her own raw power, the woman on the other side of the table had the knowledge and experience to wind her around a spindle. To see her suddenly wavering, like a girl who knew she had to dive headfirst into a pond without any idea of how deep it was or whether there were rocks or mud on the bottom. To see that chilled Egwene right to her core. What does she mean, the real bite of the thorns? Light. What does she mean to do to us? Fingering a carved black box on the table in front of her, the Amelin peered at it as if looking at something beyond. It is a question of who I can trust, she said softly. I should be able to trust Lean and Sheriam at least. Do I dare? Perrin? Her shoulders shook with a quick, silent laugh. I already trust Perrin with more than my life, but how far can I take it? Moiraine? She was silent for a moment. I have always believed I could trust Moiraine. Egwene shifted uneasily. How much did the Amelin know? It was not the kind of thing she could ask, not of the Amelin's seat. Do you know that a young man from my village, a man I used to think I'd marry one day, is the Dragon Reborn? Do you know 2 of your Aes Sedai are helping him? At least she was sure the Amelin did not know she had dreamed of him last night, running from Moiraine. She thought she was sure. She kept silent. What are you talking about? Nynaeve demanded. The Amelin looked up at her, and she moderated her tone as she added, "Forgive me, Mother, but are we to be punished more? I do not understand this talk of trust. If you want my opinion, Moiraine is not to be trusted. That is your opinion, is it?" the Amelin said. "A year out of your village, and you think you know enough of the world to choose which Aes Sedai to trust and which not. A master sailor who's barely learned to hoist a sail." "She did not mean anything, Mother," Egwene said, but she knew Nynaeve meant exactly what she had said. She shot a warning glance at Nynaeve. Nynaeve gave her braid a sharp tug, but she kept her mouth shut. "Well, who is to say?" the Amelin mused. "Trust is as slippery as a basket of eels sometimes. The point is, you 2 are what I have to work with, thin reeds though you may be." Nynaeve's mouth tightened, though her voice stayed level. "Thin reeds, Mother." The Amelin went on as if she had not spoken. "Liandrin tried to stuff you headfirst into a weir, and it may well be she left because she learned you were returning and could unmask her, so I have to believe you aren't. Black Ajah. I would rather eat scales than entrails," she muttered. "But I suppose I'll have to get used to saying that name." Egwene gaped in shock. "Black Ajah? Alakos? Light!" But Nynaeve barked. "We certainly are not. How dare you say such a thing? How dare you even suggest it? If you doubt me, child, go ahead," the Amelin said in a hard voice. "You may have an Aes Sedai's power sometimes, but you are not yet Aes Sedai, not by miles. Well, speak if you have more to say. I promise to leave you weeping for forgiveness. I'll break you like a reed. I've no patience left." Nynaeve's mouth worked. Finally, though, she gave herself a shake and drew a calming breath. When she spoke, her voice still had an edge, but a small one. "Forgive me, Mother, but you should not. We are not. We would not do such a thing." With a compressed smile, the Amelin leaned back in her chair. "So you can keep your temper when you want to. I had to know that. I could have found a way to raise you to the shawl, daughter. Vereen says you are already as strong as any woman in the tower." "The shawl?" Nynaeve gasped. "Aes Sedai? Me?" The Amelin gestured slightly as if tossing something away, but she looked regretful to lose it. "No point wishing for what can't be. I could hardly raise you to full sister and send you to scrub pots at the same time. And Vereen also says you still cannot channel consciously unless you are furious. I was ready to sever you from the true source if you even looked like embracing Sedar. The final tests for the shawl require you to channel while maintaining utter calm under pressure. Extreme pressure. Even I cannot, and would not, set that requirement aside." Nynaeve seemed stunned. She was staring at the Amelin with her mouth hanging open. "I don't understand, Mother," Egwene said after a moment. "I suppose you don't, at that. You are the only 2 in the tower I can be absolutely sure are not Black Ajah." The Amelin's mouth still twisted around those words. Liandrin and her 12 went, but did all of them go? Or did they leave some of their number behind, like a stub in shallow water that you don't see till it puts a hole in your boat? It may be I'll not find that out until it is too late, but I will not let Liandrin and the others get away with what they did. Not the theft, and especially not the murders. No one kills my people and walks away unscathed. And I'll not let 13 trained Aes Sedai serve the shadow. I mean to find them and steal them." "I don't see what that has to do with us," Nynaeve said slowly. She did not look as if she liked what she was thinking. "Just this, child. You 2 are to be my hounds, hunting the Black Ajah. No one will believe it of you, not a pair of half-trained accepted I humiliated publicly." "That is crazy." Nynaeve's eyes had opened wide by the time the Amelin reached the words, Black Ajah, and her knuckles were white from her grip on her braid. She bit her words off and spat them. They are all full Aes Sedai. Egwene hasn't even been raised to accept it yet, and you know I cannot channel enough to light a candle unless I am angry, not of my own free will. What chance would we have? Egwene nodded agreement. Her tongue had stuck to the roof of her mouth. Hunt the Black Ajah? I'd rather hunt a bear with a switch. She's just trying to scare us, to punish us more. She has to be. If that was what the Amelin was trying, she was succeeding all too well. The Amelin was nodding too. Every word you say is true. But each of you is more than a match for Liandrin in sheer power, and she is the strongest of them. Yet they are trained, and you are not. And you, Nynaeve, do have limitations, as yet. But when you don't have an oar, child, any plank will do to paddle the boat ashore. But I would be useless, Egwene blurted. Her voice came out as a squeak, but she was too afraid to be ashamed. She means it. Oh, Light, she means it. Liandrin gave me to the Shan, and now she wants me to hunt 13 like her? My studies, my lessons, working in the kitchens? Aes Sedai will surely want to continue testing me to see if I am a dreamer. I'll barely have time left over to sleep and eat. How can I hunt anything? You will have to find the time, the Amelin said, cool and serene once more, as if hunting the Black Ajah were no more than sweeping a floor. As one of the accepted, you choose your own studies, within limits, and the times for them. And the rules are a little easier for accepted. A little easier. They must be found, child. Egwene looked to Nynaeve, but what Nynaeve said was, Why is Elaine not part of this? It can't be because you think she is Black Ajah. Is it because she is daughter heir of Andor? A full net on the first cast, child. I would make her one of you if I could. But at the moment, Morgase gives me enough problems as it is. When I have her combed and curried and prodded back on the proper path, perhaps Elaine will join you. Perhaps then. Then leave Egwene out too, Nynaeve said. She is barely old enough to be a woman. I will do your hunting for you. Egwene made a sound of protest. I am a woman. But the Amelin spoke before her. I am not setting you out as bait, child. If I had 100 of you, I would still not be happy. But there are only you two, so 2 I will have. Nynaeve, Egwene said, I do not understand you. Do you mean you want to do this? It isn't that I want to, Nynaeve said wearily, but I'd rather hunt them than sit wondering if the Aes Sedai teaching me is really a dark friend. And whatever they are up to, I do not want to wait until they're ready to find out what it is. The decision. Egwene came to twisted her stomach. Then I will do it too. I don't want to sit wondering and waiting any more than you do. Nynaeve opened her mouth, and Egwene felt a flash of anger. It was such a relief after fear. And don't you dare say I'm too young again. At least I can channel when I want to, most of the time. Most of the time, I am not a little girl anymore, Nynaeve. Nynaeve stood there jerking on her braid and not saying a word. Finally, the stiffness drained out of her. You are not, are you? I have said myself, you are a woman. But I suppose I did not really believe it. Inside. Girl, No, woman. Woman, I hope you realize you've climbed into a pickling cauldron with me, and the fire may be lit. I know it. Egwene was proud that her voice hardly shook at all. The Amelin smiled as if pleased, but there was something in her blue eyes that made Egwene suspect she had known what their decisions would be all along. For an instant, she felt those puppeteer strings on her arms and legs again. Verin, fun. The Amelin hesitated, then muttered half to herself, If I must trust someone, it might as well be her. She knows as much as I already, and maybe more. Her voice strengthened. Verin will give you all that is known of Liandrin and the others, and also a list of the Ter Ungral that were taken, and what they will do. Those that we know. Bye. As for any of the Black Ajah still in the tower, listen, watch, and be careful of your questions. Be like mice. If you have even a suspicion, report it to me. I will keep an eye on you myself. No one will think that strange, given what you're being punished for. You can make your reports when I look in on you. Remember, they have killed before. They could easily kill again. That's all very well, Nynaeve said, but we will still be accepted, and it is Aes Sedai we're after. Any false sister can tell us to go about our business, or send us off to do her laundry, and we will have no choice but to obey. There are places accepted are not supposed to go, things we're not supposed to do. Like, if we were sure a sister was Black Ajah, she could tell the guards to lock us in our rooms and keep us there, and they would do it. They certainly would not take the word of an accepted over that of an Aes Sedai. For the most part, the Amelin said, you must work within the limitations of the accepted. The idea is for no one to suspect you. But, she opened the black box on her table, hesitated and looked at the other two women, as if still unsure she wanted to do this, then took out a number of stiff folded papers. Sorting through them carefully, she hesitated again, then chose out two. The remainder she shoved back into the box, and handed those two to Egwene and Nynaeve. Keep these well hidden. They are for an emergency only. Egwene unfolded her thick paper. It held writing in a neat, round hand, and was sealed at the bottom with the white flame of Tar Valon. What the bearer does is done at my order and by my authority. Obey, and keep silent at my command. Chuan Sanche, watcher of the seal's flame of Tar Valon, the Amelin seat. I could do anything with this, Nynaeve said in a wondering voice. Order the guards to march. Command the warders. She gave a little laugh. I could make a warder dance with this. Until I found out about it, the Amelin agreed dryly. Unless you had a very convincing reason, I'd make you wish Liandrin had caught you. I didn't mean to do any of that, Nynaeve said hastily. I just meant that it gives more authority than I had imagined. You may need every shred of it. But just you remember, child, a dark friend won't heed that any more than a white cloak would. They would both likely kill you just for having it. If that paper is a shield, well, paper shields are flimsy, and this one may have a target painted on it. Yes, mother, Egwene and Nynaeve said together. Egwene folded her paper up and tucked it into her belt pouch, resolving not to take it out again unless she absolutely had to. And how will I know when that is? What about Mat? Nynaeve asked. He's very sick, mother, and he does not have much time left. I will send word to you, the Amelin said curtly. But, mother, I will send word to you. Now, off with you, children. The hope of the tower rests in your hands. Go to your rooms and get some rest. Remember, you have appointments with Sheriam and with the Pots. Chapter 15. The Grey Man. Outside the Amelin seat's study, Egwene and Nynaeve found the corridors empty except for an occasional serving woman hurrying about her duties on soft-slippered feet. Egwene was grateful for their presence. The halls suddenly seemed like caverns, for all the tapestries and stonework. Dangerous caverns. Nynaeve strode along purposefully, tugging at her braid fitfully again, and Egwene hurried to keep up. She did not want to be left alone. If the Black Ajah is still here, Nynaeve, and if they even suspect what we're doing. I hope you didn't mean what you said about acting as if we are already bound by the 3 oaths. I don't intend to let them kill me, not if I can stop it by channeling. If any of them are still here, Egwene, they will know what we are doing as soon as they see us. Despite what she was saying, Nynaeve sounded preoccupied. Or at least they will see us as a threat, and that's much the same thing as far as what they will do. How will they see us as a threat? Nobody is threatened by someone they can order about. Nobody is threatened by someone who has to scrub pots and turn the spits 3 times a day. That's why the Amelin is putting us to work in the kitchens. Part of the reason, anyway. Perhaps the Amelin did not think it through, Nynaeve said absently. Or perhaps she did, and means something different for us than what she claims. Think, Egwene. Liandrin would not have tried to put us out of the way unless she thought we were a threat to her. I can't imagine how or to what, but I cannot see how it could have changed either. If there are any Black Ajah still here, they will surely see us the same way, whether they suspect what we're doing or not. Egwene swallowed. I hadn't thought of that. Light. I wish I were invisible. Nynaeve, if they are still after us, I will risk being stilled before I let dark friends kill me, or maybe worse. And I won't believe you will let them take you either, no matter what you told the Amelin. I meant it. For a moment, Nynaeve seemed to rouse from her thoughts. Her steps slowed. A pale-haired novice carrying a tray rushed past. I meant every word, Egwene, Nynaeve went on when the novice was out of hearing. There are other ways to defend ourselves. If there were not, Aes Sedai would be killed every time they left the tower. We just have to reason those ways out and use them. I know several ways already, and so do you. They are dangerous. Egwene opened her mouth to say they were only dangerous to whoever attacked her, but Nynaeve plowed on over her. You can come to like them too much. When I let out all my anger at those white cloaks this morning, it felt too good. It is too dangerous. She shivered and quickened her pace again, and Egwene had to step lively to catch up. You sound like Sheriam. You never have before. You have pushed every limit they've put on you. Why would you accept limits now, when we might have to ignore them to stay alive? What good if it ends with us being put out of the tower? Stilled or not, what good then? Nynaeve's voice dropped as if she were speaking to herself. I can do it. I must, if I'm to stay here long enough to learn. And I must learn if I'm to. Suddenly she seemed to realize she was speaking aloud. She shot a hard look at Egwene, and her voice firmed. Let me think. Please, be quiet and let me think. Egwene held her tongue, but inside she bubbled with unasked questions. What special reason did Nynaeve have for wanting to learn more of what the White Tower could teach? What was it she wanted to do? Why was Nynaeve keeping it secret from her? We've learned to keep too many secrets since coming to the tower. The Amelin is keeping secrets from us, too. Light. What is she going to do about Mat? Nynaeve accompanied her all the way back to the novices' quarters, not turning aside to the accepted's quarters. The galleries were still empty, and they met no one as they climbed the spiraling ramps. As they came up on Elaine's room, Nynaeve stopped, knocked once, and immediately opened the door and put her head inside. Then she was letting the white door swing shut and striding toward the next, Egwene's room. She isn't here yet, she said. I need to talk to both of you. Egwene caught her shoulders and pulled her to an abrupt halt. What? Something tugged at her hair, stung her ear. A black blur streaked in front of her face to clang against the wall, and in the next breath, Nynaeve was bearing her to the gallery floor behind the railing. Wide-eyed and sprawling, Egwene stared at what lay on the stone in front of her door, where it had fallen. A bolt from a crossbow. A few dark strands from her hair were tangled in the 4 heavy prongs, meant for punching through armor. She raised a trembling hand to touch her ear, to touch the tiniest nick, damp with a bead of blood. If I had not stopped just then, if I hadn't, the quarrel would have gone right through her head and would probably have killed Nynaeve too. Blood and ashes, she gasped. Blood and bloody ashes. Watch your language, Nynaeve admonished, but her heart was not in it. She lay peering between the white stone balusters toward the far side of the galleries. A glow surrounded her, to Egwene's eyes. She had embraced saidin. Hastily, Egwene tried to reach out for the one power too, but at first haste defeated her. Haste. And images that kept intruding on the emptiness. Images of her head being ripped apart like a rotten melon by a heavy quarrel that went on to bury itself in Nynaeve. She took a deep breath and tried again, and finally the rose floated in nothingness, open to the true source, and the power filled her. She rolled onto her stomach to peer through the railing beside Nynaeve. Do you see anything? Do you see him? I'll put a lightning bolt through him. She could feel it building, pressing on her to loose it. It is a man, isn't it? She could not imagine a man coming into the novices' quarters, but it was impossible to picture a woman carrying a crossbow through the tower. I don't know. Quiet anger filled Nynaeve's voice. Her anger was always at its worst when she grew quiet with it. I thought I saw. Yes. There! Egwene felt the power pulse in the other woman. And then Nynaeve was unhurriedly getting to her feet, brushing at her dress as if there were nothing more to worry about. Egwene stared at her. What did you do? Nynaeve? Of the 5 powers, Nynaeve said in a lecturing tone, faintly mocking, air, sometimes called wind, is thought by many to be of the least use. This is far from true. She finished with a tight laugh. I told you there were other ways to defend ourselves. I used air to hold him with air. If it is a he, I could not see him clearly. A trick the Amelin showed me once, though I doubt she expected me to see how it was done. Well, are you going to lie there all day? Egwene scrambled up to hurry after her around the gallery. Before long, a man did come into sight around the curve, dressed in plain brown breeches and coat. He stood facing the other way, balanced on the ball of one foot, with the other hanging in mid-air, as if he had been caught in the middle of running. The man would feel as if he were buried in thick jelly, yet it was nothing but air stiffened around him. Egwene remembered the Amelin's trick, too, but she did not think she could duplicate it. Nynaeve only had to see a thing done once to know how to do it herself. When she could manage to channel at all, of course. They came closer, and Egwene's melding with the power vanished in shock. The hilt of a dagger stood out from the man's chest. His face sagged, and death had already filmed his half-closed eyes. He crumpled to the gallery floor as Nynaeve loosed the trap that had held him. He was an average-appearing man, of average height and average build, with features so ordinary, Egwene did not think she would have noticed him in a group of 3. She only studied him a moment, though, before realizing that something was missing. A crossbow. She gave a start and looked about wildly. There had to be another one, Nynaeve. Somebody took the crossbow, and somebody stabbed him. He could be out there ready to shoot at us again. Calm yourself, Nynaeve said, but she peered both ways along the gallery, jerking at her braid. Just be calm, and we will figure out what to. Her words cut off at the sound of steps on the ramp leading up to their level. Egwene's heart pounded, seemingly in her throat. Eyes fastened on the head of the ramp, she desperately strove to touch Sadar again. But for her, that required calm, and her heartbeats shattered calm. Aes Sedai stopped at the top of the ramp, frowning at what she saw. What in the name of the light has happened here? She hurried forward, her serenity gone for once. We found him, Nynaeve said, as the mistress of novices knelt beside the corpse. Sheriam put a hand to the man's chest and jerked it back twice as fast, hissing. Steeling herself visibly, she touched him again and maintained the touch longer. Dead, she muttered. As dead as it is possible to be, and more. When she straightened, she pulled a handkerchief from her sleeve and wiped her fingers. You found him? Here? Like this? Egwene nodded, sure that if she spoke, Sheriam would hear the lie in her voice. We did, Nynaeve said firmly. Sheriam shook her head. A man, a dead man at that, in the novices' quarters would be scandal enough, but this... What makes him different? Nynaeve asked. And how could he be more than dead? Sheriam took a deep breath and gave them each a searching look. He is one of the soulless, a grey man. Absently, she wiped her fingers again, her eyes going back to the body. Worried eyes. The soulless? Egwene said, a tremor in her voice, at the same time that Nynaeve said, a grey man? Sheriam glanced at them, a look as penetrating as it was brief. Not a part of your studies yet, but you seem to have gone beyond the rules in a great many ways. And considering you found this, fun, she gestured to the corpse. The soulless, the grey men, give up their souls to serve the Dark One as assassins. They are not really alive after that. Not quite dead, but not truly alive. And despite the name, some grey men are women. A very few. Even among Dark Friends, only a handful of women are stupid enough to make that sacrifice. You can look right at them and hardly notice them until it is too late. He was as much as dead while he walked. Now, Only my eyes tell me that what is lying there ever lived at all." She gave them another long look. "No grey man has dared enter Tarvalon since the Trolloc Wars." "What will you do?" Egwene asked. Sheriam's brows rose, and she quickly added, "If I may ask, Aes Sedai." The Aes Sedai hesitated. "I suppose you may, since you had the bad luck to find him. It will be up to the Amelin seat. But with everything that has happened, I believe she will want to keep this as quiet as is possible. We do not need more rumors. You will speak of this to none but me, or to the Amelin, should she mention it first." "Yes, Aes Sedai," Egwene said fervently. Nynaeve's voice was cooler. Sheriam appeared to take their obedience for granted. She gave no sign of having heard them. Her attention was all on the dead man. Gwayman, the soulless. There will be no hiding the fact that a man was killed here. The glow of the One Power suddenly surrounded her, and just as abruptly, a long, low dome covered the body on the floor, grayish, and so opaque that it was hard to see there was a body under it. But this will keep anyone else from touching him who can discover his nature. I must have this removed before the novices come back. Her tilted green eyes regarded them as if she had just remembered their presence. "You two go now. To your room, I think, Nynaeve. Considering what you are already facing, if it became known you were involved in this, even on the edge of it. Go." Egwene curtsied and tugged at Nynaeve's sleeve, but Nynaeve said, "Why did you come up here, Aes Sedai?" For a moment Sheriam looked startled, but on the instant she frowned. Fists on her hips, she regarded Nynaeve with all the firmness of her office. "Does the mistress of novices now need an excuse for coming to the novices' quarters? Accept it?" she said softly. "Do? Accept it now? Question, Aes Sedai. The Amelin means to make something of you two, but whether she does or not, I will teach you manners, at least. Now, the pair of you, go, before I haul you both down to my study, and not for the appointment the Amelin seat has already set for you." A sudden thought came to Egwene. "Forgive me, Aes Sedai," she said quickly, "but I must fetch my cloak. I feel cold." She rushed away, around the gallery before the Aes Sedai could speak. If Sheriam found that crossbow bolt in front of her door, there would be too many questions. No pretending they had only found the man, that he had no connection to her then. But when she reached the door to her room, the heavy bolt was gone. Only the jagged chip in the stone beside the door said it had ever been there. Egwene's skin crawled. How could anyone take it without one of us seeing? Another grey man. She had embraced Saidin before she knew it, only the sweet flow of the power inside her telling her what she had done. Even so, it was one of the hardest things she had ever done, opening that door and going into her room. There was no one there. She snatched the white cloak off its peg and ran out anyway, and she did not release Saidin until she was halfway back to the others. Something more had passed between the women while she was gone. Nynaeve was attempting to appear meek, and succeeding only in looking as if she had a sour stomach. Sheriam had her fists on her hips and was tapping her foot irritably, and the stare she was giving Nynaeve, like green millstones ready to start grinding barley flour, took in Egwene equally. "Forgive me, Aes Sedai," she said hastily, dropping a curtsy and settling her cloak on her shoulders at the same time. "This finding a dead man, a grey man, it made me cold. If we may go now." At Sheriam's tight nod of dismissal, Nynaeve made a bare curtsy. Egwene seized her arm and hustled her away. "Are you trying to make more trouble for us?" she demanded when they were 2 levels down. And safely out of earshot of Sheriam, she hoped. "What else did you say to her, to make her glare like that? More questions, I suppose? I hope you learned something worth making her mad at us." "She would not say anything," Nynaeve muttered. "We must ask questions if we are to do any good, Egwene. We will have to take a few chances, or we'll never learn anything." Egwene sighed. "Well, be a little more circumspect." From the set of Nynaeve's face, the other woman had no intention of going easy or avoiding risks. Egwene sighed again. "Aye, the crossbow bolt was gone, Nynaeve. It must have been another grey man who took it. So that is why you—" "Light!" Nynaeve frowned and gave a sharp tug to her braid. After a time, Egwene said, What was that she did to cover the body? She did not want to think of it as a grey man. That reminded her there was another one out there. She did not want to think of anything at all right then. Air, Nynaeve replied. She used air, a neat trick, and I think I see how to make something useful with it. The use of the one power was divided into the 5 powers: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. Different talents required different combinations of the 5 powers. I don't understand some of the ways the 5 powers are combined. Plague healing. I can see why it requires spirit and maybe air, but why water? Nynaeve rounded on her. What are you babbling about? Have you forgotten what we're doing? She looked around. They had reached the Accepted's quarters, a stack of galleries lower than the Novices' quarters, surrounding a garden rather than a court. There was no one in sight except for another, Accepted, hurrying along on another level, but she lowered her voice. Have you forgotten the Black Ajah? I am trying to forget it, Egwene said fiercely. For a little while anyway. I am trying to forget that we just left a dead man. I'm trying to forget that he almost killed me, and that he has a companion who might try it again. She touched her ear. The drop of blood had dried, but the nick still hurt. We are lucky we aren't both dead right now. Nynaeve's face softened, but when she spoke, her voice held something of the time when she had been the wisdom of Emond's Field, saying words that had to be said for someone's own good. Remember that body, Egwene. Remember that he tried to kill you. Kill us. Remember the Black Ajah. Remember them all the time. Because if you forget, just once, the next time, it may be you lying dead. I know, Egwene sighed, but I do not have to like it. Did you notice what Sheriam did not mention? No. What? She never wondered who stabbed him. Now, come on. My room is just down here, and you can put your feet up while we talk. Chapter 16. Hunters. 3 Nynaeve's room was considerably larger than the novice rooms. She had a real bed, not one built into the wall, 2 ladder-back armchairs instead of a stool, and a wardrobe for her clothes. The furnishings were all plain, suitable for a middling successful farmer's house, but compared to the novices, the Accepted lived in luxury. There was even a small rug woven with scrolls of yellow and red on blue. The room was not empty when Egwene and Nynaeve entered. Elaine stood in front of the fireplace, arms crossed beneath her breasts and eyes red at least partly from anger. 2 tall young men sprawled in the chairs, all arms and legs. One, with his dark green coat undone to show a snowy shirt, shared Elaine's blue eyes and red gold hair, and his grinning face marked him plainly as her brother. The other, Nynaeve's age, and with his grey coat neatly buttoned, was slender and dark of hair and eye. He rose, all sure confidence and lithely muscled grace, when Egwene and Nynaeve came in. He was, Egwene thought, not for the first time, the most handsome man she had ever seen. His name was Galad. It is good to see you again, he said, taking her hand. I have worried much over you. We have worried much. Her pulse quickened, and she took back her hand before he should feel it. Thank you, Galad, she murmured. Light, but he's beautiful. She told herself to stop thinking that way. It was not easy. She found herself smoothing her dress, wishing he was seeing her in silk instead of this plain white wool, perhaps even one of those Domani dresses Min had told her of, the ones that clung and seemed so thin you thought they might be transparent even though they were not. She flushed furiously and banished the image from her mind, willed him to look away from her face. It did not help that half the women in the tower, from scullery maids to Aes Sedai themselves, looked at him as if they had the same thoughts. It did not help that his smile seemed for her alone. In fact, his smile made it worse. Light. If he even suspected what I was thinking, I'd die. The golden-haired young man leaned forward in his chair. The question is, where have you been? Elaine dodges my questions as if she has a pocket full of figs and doesn't want me to have any. I have told you, Gawain, Elaine said in a tight voice. It is none of your affair. I came here, she added to Nynaeve, because I did not want to be alone. They saw me, and followed. They would not take no for an answer. Wouldn't they? Nynaeve said flatly. But it is our affair, sister. Galad said. Your safety is very much our affair. He looked at Egwene, and she felt her heart jump. The safety of all of you is very important to me. To us. I am not your sister, Elaine snapped. If you want company, Gawain told Elaine with a smile, we can do as well as any. And after what we went through just to be here, we deserve some explanation of where you've been. I would rather let Galad thump me all over the practice yard all day than face Mother again for a single minute. I'd rather have Cúlin mad at me. Cúlin was master of arms, and kept a tight discipline among the young men who came to train at the White Tower, whether they aspired to become warders or just to learn from them. Deny the connection, if you will, Galad told Elaine gravely, but it is still there, and Mother put your safety in our hands. Gawain grimaced. She'll have our hides, Elaine, if anything happens to you. We had to talk fast, or she'd have hauled us back home with her. I have never heard of a queen sending her own sons to the headsman, but Mother sounded ready to make an exception if we don't bring you home safely. I am sure, Elaine said, that your fast talk was all for me. None of it was meant to let you stay here studying with the warders. Gawain's face reddened. Your safety was our first concern. Galad sounded as if he meant it, and Egwene was sure he did. We managed to convince Mother that if you did return here, you would need someone to look after you. Look after me, Elaine exclaimed, but Galad went on smoothly. The White Tower has become a dangerous place. There have been deaths, murders, with no real explanations. Even some Aes Sedai have been killed, though they have tried to keep that quiet. And I have heard rumors of the Black Ajah, spoken in the tower itself. By Mother's command, when it is safe for you to leave your training, we are to return you to Caemlyn. For answer, Elaine lifted her chin and half turned away from him. Gawain ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Light, Nynaeve, Galad and I are not villains. All we want to do is help. We would do it anyway, but Mother commanded it, so there's no chance of you talking us out of it. Morghese's commands carry no weight in Tarvalon, Nynaeve said in a level voice. As for your offer of help, I will remember it. Should we need help, you will be among the first to hear of it. For now, I wish you to leave. She gestured pointedly to the door, but he ignored her. That is all very well, but Mother will want to know Elaine has come back, and why she ran off without a word, and what she was doing these months. Light, Elaine. The whole tower was in a turmoil. Mother was half crazed with fear. I thought she'd tear the tower down with her bare hands. Elaine's face took on a measure of guilt, and Gawain pressed his advantage. You owe her that much, Elaine. You owe me that much. Burn me, you're being as stubborn as stone. You've been gone for months, and all I know about it is that you've run afoul of Sheriam. And the only reasons I know that much are because you've been crying and you won't sit down. Elaine's indignant stare said he had squandered whatever momentary advantage he might have had. Enough, Nynaeve said. Galad and Gawain opened their mouths. She raised her voice. I said enough. She glared at them until it was clear their silence would hold, then went on. Elaine owes the two of you nothing. Since she chooses to tell you nothing, that is that. Now, this is my room, not the common room of an inn, and I want you out of it. But, Elaine, Gawain began at the same time that Galad said, we only want... Nynaeve spoke loudly enough to drown them out. I doubt you asked permission to enter the Accepted's quarters. They stared at her, looking surprised. I thought not. You will be out of my room, out of my sight before I count 3, or I will write a note to the Master of Arms about this. Colin Gaidin has a much stronger arm than Sheriam Sedai, and you may be assured that I will be there to see he makes a proper job of it. Nynaeve, you wouldn't, Gawain began worriedly, but Galad motioned him to silence and stepped closer to Nynaeve. Her face kept its stern expression, but she unconsciously smoothed the front of her dress as he smiled down at her. Egwene was not surprised. She did not think she had met a woman outside the Red Ajah who would not be affected by Galad's smile. I apologize, Nynaeve, for our forcing ourselves on you unwanted," he said smoothly. "We will go, of course, but remember that we are here if you need us. And whatever caused you to run away, we can help with that as well." Nynaeve returned his smile. "Fun," she said. Galad blinked, his smile fading. Calmly, he turned to Egwene. Gawain got up and started for the door. "Egwene," Galad said, "you know that you, especially, can call on me at any time, for anything. I hope you know that." "Too," Nynaeve said. Galad gave her an irritated look. "We will talk again," he told Egwene, bowing over her hand. With a last smile, he took an unhurried step toward the door. "Thrura!" Gawain darted through the door, and even Galad's graceful stride quickened markedly. "Rey!" Nynaeve finished as the door banged shut behind them. Elaine clapped her hands delightedly. "Oh, well done," she said. "Very well done. I did not even know men were forbidden the Accepted's quarters too." "They aren't," Nynaeve said dryly, but those louts did not know it either. Elaine clapped her hands again and laughed. "I'd have let them just leave," Nynaeve added, "if Galad had not made such a show of taking his time about it. That young man has too fair a face for his own good." Egwene almost laughed at that. Galad was no more than a year younger than Nynaeve, if that, and Nynaeve was straightening her dress again. "Galad!" Elaine sniffed. "He'll bother us again. And I do not know whether your trick will work more than once. He does what he sees as right, no matter who it hurts, even himself." "Then I will think of something else," Nynaeve said. "We can't afford to have them looking over our shoulders all the time. Elaine, if you wish, I can make a salve that will soothe you." Elaine shook her head, then lay down across the bed with her chin in her hands. If Sheriam found out, we would no doubt both have yet another visit to her study to look forward to. "You have not said very much, Egwene. Cat caught your tongue?" Her expression became grimmer. "Or perhaps Galad has?" Egwene blushed in spite of herself. "I simply did not choose to argue with them," she said in as dignified a tone as she could manage. "Of course," Elaine said grudgingly. "I will admit that Galad is good-looking, but he is horrid too. He always does right, as he sees it. I know that does not sound horrid, but it is. He has never disobeyed Mother, not in the smallest thing that I know of. He will not tell a lie, even a small one, or break a rule. If he turns you in for breaking one, there isn't the slightest spite in it. He seems sad you could not live up to his standards, if anything. But that doesn't change the fact that he will turn you in." "That sounds uncomfortable," Egwene said carefully, "but not horrid. I cannot imagine Galad doing anything horrid." Elaine shook her head, as if in disbelief that Egwene found it so hard to see what was clear to her. "If you want to pay attention to someone, try Gawain. He is nice enough most of the time, and he's besotted with you." "Gawain? He has never looked at me twice." "Of course not, you fool. The way you stare at Galad until your eyes look ready to fall out of your face." Egwene's cheeks felt hot, but she was afraid it might well be true. "Galad saved his life when Gawain was a child," Elaine went on. "Gawain will never admit he is interested in a woman if Galad is interested in her, but I have heard him talk about you, and I know. He never could hide things from me." "That is nice to know," Egwene said, then laughed at Elaine's grin. "Perhaps I can get him to say some of those things to me instead of you. You could choose Green Ajah, you know. Green sisters sometimes marry. Gawain truly is besotted, and you would be good for him. Besides, I would like to have you for a sister." "If you two are finished with girlish chatter," Nynaeve cut in, "there are important matters to talk about." "Yes," Elaine said, "such as what the Amirlan seed had to say to you after I left." "I would rather not talk about that," Egwene said awkwardly. She did not like lying to Elaine. She did not say anything that was pleasant. Elaine gave a sniff of disbelief. "Most people think I get off easier than the others because I am daughter heir of Andor. The truth is that if anything, I catch it harder than the rest because I am daughter heir. Neither of you did anything I did not, and if the Amelin had harsh words for you, she would have twice as harsh for me. Now, What did she say? You must keep this just between us three, Nynaeve said. The Black Ajah! Nynaeve! Egwene exclaimed. The Amelin said Elaine was to be left out of it. The Black Ajah! Elaine almost shouted, scrambling up to kneel in the middle of the bed. You cannot leave me out after telling me this much. I won't be left out. I never meant for you to be, Nynaeve assured her. Egwene could only stare at her in amazement. Egwene, it was you and I who Liandrin saw as a threat. It was you and I who were just nearly killed. Nearly killed, Elaine whispered. Perhaps because we are still a threat, and perhaps because they already know that we were closeted alone with the Amelin, and even what she told us. We need someone with us who they do not know about, and if she isn't known to the Amelin either, so much the better. I am not sure we can trust the Amelin much further than the Black Ajah. She means to use us for her own ends. I mean to see she doesn't use us up. Can you understand that? Egwene nodded reluctantly. Just the same, she said, it will be dangerous, Elaine, as dangerous as anything we faced in Falmer. Maybe more so. You do not have to be part of it this time. I know that, Elaine said quietly. She paused, then went on. When Andor goes to war, the first Prince of the Sword commands the army, but the Queen rides with them too. 700 years ago, at the Battle of Qualin Den, the Andormen were being routed when Queen Modraline rode, alone and unarmed, carrying the Lion Banner into the midst of the Tyren army. The Andormen rallied and attacked once more to save her and won the battle. That is the kind of courage expected of the Queen of Andor. If I have not learned to control my fear yet, I must before I take my mother's place on the Lion Throne. Suddenly her somber mood vanished in a giggle. Besides, do you think I would pass up an adventure so I could scrub pots? You will do that anyway, Nynaeve told her, and hope that everyone thinks that is all you are doing. Now listen carefully. Elaine listened, and her mouth slowly dropped open as Nynaeve unfolded what the Amelin seat had told them, and the task she had laid on them, and the attempt on their lives. She shivered over the grey man, and read the document the Amelin had given Nynaeve with a look of wonder, then returned it, murmuring, I wish I could have that when I face Mother next. By the time Nynaeve finished, though, her face was a picture of indignation. Why, that's like being told to go up in the hills and find lions, only you do not know whether there are any lions, but if there are, they may be hunting you, and they may be disguised as bushes. Oh, and if you find any lions, try not to let them eat you before you can tell where they are. If you are afraid, Nynaeve said, you can still stand aside. It will be too late, once you've begun. Elaine tossed her head back. Of course I am afraid. I am not a fool, but not afraid enough to quit before I have even started. There is something else too, Nynaeve said. I am afraid the Amelin may mean to let Mat die, but an Aes Sedai is supposed to heal anyone who asks. The daughter heir seemed caught between indignation and disbelief. Why would she let Mat die? I cannot believe it. I will not, nor can I. Egwene gasped. She could not have meant that. The Amelin couldn't let him die. All the way here, Vereen said that the Amelin would see he was healed. Nynaeve shook her head. Vereen said the Amelin would see to him. That is not the same thing. And the Amelin avoided saying yes or no when I asked her. Maybe she has not made her mind up. But why? Elaine asked. Because the White Tower does what it does for its own reasons. Nynaeve's voice made Egwene shiver. I do not know why. Whether they help Mat live or let him die depends on what serves their ends. None of the three oaths says they have to heal him. Mat is just a tool in the Amelin's eyes. So are we. She will use us to hunt the Black Ajah. But if you break a tool so it cannot be fixed, you don't weep over it. You just get another one. Both of you had best remember that. What are we going to do about him? Egwene asked. What can we do? Nynaeve went to her wardrobe and rummaged in the back of it. When she came out, she had a striped cloth bag of herbs. With my medicines and luck, perhaps I can heal him myself. Varen could not, Elaine said. Moraine and Vereen together could not, and Moraine had an angreal. Nynaeve, if you draw too much of the one power, you could burn yourself to a cinder. Or just still yourself if you're lucky. If you can call that luck. Nynaeve shrugged. They keep telling me I have the potential to be the most powerful Aes Sedai in 1,000 years. Perhaps it is time to find out whether they are right. She gave a tug to her braid. It was plain that however brave Nynaeve's words, she was afraid. But she won't let Mat die, even if it means risking death herself. They keep saying we're all three so powerful, or will be. Maybe, if we all try together, we can divide the flow among us. We have never tried working together, Nynaeve said slowly. I am not sure I know how to combine our abilities. Trying could be almost as dangerous as drawing too much of the power. Oh, if we're going to do it, Elaine said, climbing off the bed. Let's do it. The longer we talk of it, the more frightened I will become. Mat is in the guest rooms. I do not know which one, but Sheriam told me that much. As if to put period to her words, the door banged open, and an Aes Sedai entered as though it were her room, and they the interlopers. Egwene made her curtsy deep, to hide the dismay on her face. Chapter 17.